This lesson is Vantage Point. This picture shows the bird's eye view, the high horizon line, and in this case we have an annotated coloration, warms and cools. There's small, middle, and large houses representing a little cove with trees, similar trees, and the strength of the middle yellow is what ties the big picture together. This one was chosen as the bird's eye view, but with the horizontal format. Now we're going to take this picture into an actual watercolor. This picture has been sketched again on 100% rag Arches watercolor paper. And to begin with, I'm going to wet the paper with clear water, and I'm going to wet it all the way down because this will be the warm underpainting and then the cool underpainting. I'm using an aquarelle brush, a 1-inch chisel, and it comes in several sizes. This one is the 1-inch. I have a 3/4 and a 1/2 inch, and there are even 1/8 of an inch sizes in the chisel brushes. We also use rounds, and the rounds are very lovely from the brush type, which is like a bamboo brush, and I much prefer the sables. And speaking of that, we have 100% Kolinsky sable brushes. They're very, very nice. And this one I show to you, it's a number 12. It's my favorite one. All right. After you have wet the paper, the next thing is to select the warm yellow, and I'll be using a cadmium yellow medium. You begin with the wash that starts at the upper right-hand corner, just coming down right through the center of the picture. As we said earlier, light itself can tie the whole picture together. And in this case, the light source is above and slightly to the right. On a vertical, as I'm doing, there will be these runs that will come naturally down, and I'm just going to work with that, not worrying about it at this point. All right, I'm also using a second color, which is warm, and that is burnt sienna. Burnt sienna will be placed on the mountains in various places along the erosion lines, in the distance, and then the middle ground. And sometimes it's good to use strokes vertically, particularly on a high horizon line, because the picture is very linear and we want to keep the pictures up and down. We don't want the horizontal to be monotonous. So I'm allowing these washes just to flow. And I'm looking at raw sienna, and I'm looking at burnt sienna, and these colors will come right down into the foreground. Now in the immediate foreground, I'm going to use a stronger color, which will be cadmium red medium, and also, again, the raw sienna. I'm kind of thinking as I'm going here because this is going to be fun. I'm just letting this run. And the next thing is very quickly, not to let this dry because it still has to be a fluid underpainting. I'm going to move to the second which is a cool wash. And I'm going to look at Prussian blue, and also I'm going to look at French ultramarine blue. Now I'm going to start with vertical strokes coming down this way, not forgetting my lost and found edge, because there is a little house here. And wherever you put the water, you're going to have the flow of color. So you want to be very careful. If you don't want blue over the roof that is eventually going to be warm in color, and you want to be quite careful that you don't run that first wash over it. Now, the distant water back in here, and then I'm going to come closer to shore, and the shoreline, and the area in this area is going to be a little greener blue, and I'm going to work pretty fast to capture the yellow in there. Then I'm going to crisscross that with the other blue, which I mentioned earlier as French ultramarine. And so here we're going to very quickly establish the patterns of the water. And there will be cast shadows falling under the mountain, of course. And in this case, I don't want to do it too much, too fast. But you want to be kind of aware of what's going to come next. So this wash was done very quickly. The watercolorist learns to be very deft, I use that word, in what they're doing. That means they need to know where they're going with their colors. And having done this kind of a subject a few times, I'm pretty familiar with what works. And the reflections are done with the verticals and the horizontals. So we have a kind of a sweet little beginning here. And I'm going to go back up to where the mountain is reflecting down into the water. And I want to establish what will be back here, some trees that are going to reflect down into the water. And I want to do those now. Now I'm going to move to a smaller brush, and using the Prussian blue, I'm going to add a little bit of emphasis into the water where there will be reflections. And they are, obviously the trees aren't in there yet, but they will be. So I'm just going to let that happen as it will happen, to add quite a bit of interest in those hills. And then the same thing is over here. And the trees are reflecting down into the water. And it's good to do this while the water is still there and moist, and paper is moist. Now, another brush that I like to use is a smaller round, and it has a wonderful balance to it. It's the handle has been curved, so it kind of fits and nestles in your hand. And it's a neat brush, a really neat brush to use for this purpose. And coming back into this area with the horizontal strokes. Again, this is still the first wash, and it is the cool underpainting that has been placed over the warm underpainting. And I'm leaving this nice, fresh, warm color to flow right down here. Now, more of the greens will be placed up here in this area. And it's good to put them in early, the lighter colors. They will be added to later on. And I'm just allowing the composition to develop as we go. And I have a very general idea of what I want to do, but I want to let this happen just casually and easily. All right. Now, for the most part, I want to, one more thing, just to bring a little bit stronger underpainting into the middle ground here in this area. So I'm going to add some more of the raw sienna and a touch of the burnt sienna into this area, right in here and in there and down this way. Now there will be tree forms, so I might indicate that with a little brighter yellow. Going back to the underpainting again, just hitting it a few times, a little bit more yellow in this area. And then I will drop the cools on top of that. And let's see if we can do that while it's still damp. All right, that works real nicely. And then a few more trees back in here. While it's still damp is a good time to put this first wash in. All right. Now I'm going to come back to this after this is dry, and I'll do the second set of washes, which will be middle value.